Next 20 minutes or so, we're going to be chatting with the leader of the NTA, Gary Griffith. I wore this jersey for spite. You understand? Because I know he's a Manchester United fan. You know what I mean? So I still come out in my Liverpool jersey. So we're going to bring him in via Zoom.
Good morning.
Morning. I know this is not the first thing you want to see on a morning, especially when Manchester United playing later in Europa.
In fact, let me surprise you. I actually bought some yesterday. It's selling, those Liverpool jerseys selling $3 for $5 in Pennywise. So if you want to wash your car and you need something to dry your car, now I have something to shine my car now. So I actually have those same jerseys I just bought. Selling $3 for $5 in Pennywise, Liverpool jerseys. Get it now. Yeah. Stocks last.
Hey Gary, nice to see you.
Good morning.
That one backfired, boy. Hey, I lied. So Gary, we got some serious things to talk about. All right. The first thing I wanna get into is some things revolving around the TTPS. I'm gonna start with the body cameras, and the reason why I'm gonna start with the body cameras is because, if I'm not mistaken, when you were the Commissioner of Police, the 940 body cameras that the police have right now that was reported just earlier this week for over 6,000 officers, if I'm not mistaken, the vast majority of those cameras were supplied during your tenure as Commissioner of Police. You could correct me if I'm wrong. But we also have a situation where I've been consistently speaking about these 3,000 cameras that they've ordered. No down payment has been made yet according to the reports, and we're paying $25 million for 3,000 cameras that are cost $8,000 a camera when you work it out, which to me is pretty high. So we have the other issue with police officers apparently not wearing the body cameras that they currently have. So is it a case where they're not wearing the body cameras? Should they be penalized for not wearing these body cameras, or is it just a case that we just don't have enough to supply all the police officers?
Yeah, sure. Okay, good morning again. So let me see how I can summarize this in a couple minutes. For the first time ever, the police acquired body cameras under my watch as Commissioner of Police. I understood the importance for us to embrace technology. It was 1,200, in fact, it was 900, and then we got another 300. Okay. So those 1,200 body cameras would have been more than sufficient to be able to ensure that the police adhere to the mandatory standard operational procedure that I implemented, where I put in the standing orders that every police officer who goes on a patrol, a roadblock, issuing a warrant, going on an operation, being on a foot patrol, or coming out of their vehicle, must, this is not optional, must turn on their body camera. So by putting 1,200 body cameras you have 70 stations, that meant we were putting like about 10 body cameras in every station for issue, for the officers to sign for it when they go on operation, and the other 500 odd would have been to the IATF, the GB, SORT, the task force, and so forth. A station, for example, you're not going to have more than 2 patrols or operations at any one time. So you had enough. And there's a reason why we put it for you to sign for it rather than being issued with it. When you sign for it, it meant that when you return, we will now take in the body cameras and check in to verify that you had it turned on when you were out there. So the nonsense that Benjamin and Earl are trying to do, but saying, well, we want to make sure every police officer has an issued body camera, and because we don't have enough to give to each police officer, we can't make it mandatory. Total nonsense. That is like stating you can't give police officers a firearm because we don't have 7,000 firearms for 7,000 police officers. When the officers go on patrol, they sign for the firearm, they go out, they do the operation, they return the firearm. The same thing I did with the tasers, the same thing I did with the pepper spray. The tasers, the pepper spray, the body cameras, just because Gary Griffith implemented it, they have shut it down. So to re-emphasize, there are enough body cameras right now. All they had to do was to sign for it and use it. We have several police shootings so far. We have families wanting closure. And this could very well mean that the body cameras, had they been issued and utilized, could have protected the police officers if wrongfully accused for excessive use of force. So that is the value of using the body cameras. It's not about just targeting the police officers, but to protect the police officers when the lady in the towel bawling at the police too wicked. And you have 5 and 6 persons giving a version of the story that is not appropriate. Yeah. So this will assist. We put a lot of PR training to get the police officers to understand this is here to protect you, not to target you. So going back to the body cameras were enough. there's a standard operational procedure, there's a standing order making it mandatory. So all of these police shootings, if the officers did not wear it, they should have been immediately suspended. Failure for the Commissioner of Police and the Deputy Commissioner of Police operations not to have disciplinary action taken on them, it means that the Police Service Commission should take disciplinary action on Erla Christopher. She should have, in any other developed country, she would have been fired immediately. We have police shootings, we have 1,000 body cameras, and she's sitting back stating, well, we're waiting for the other 6,000. There's no need for that. As we come to that, those 1,200, we were able to acquire for about 2,000 TT odd. You could go online and see it. Exactly. You then find, you bypass the qualified agencies who have been doing this for decades, who we got it at 2,000, find some company that nobody has ever heard about at a charge of $6,000 more than the recognized, registered, established companies that got the 1,200 before. So we are now going to pay over 18 million extra in taxpayers' dollars, and nobody's asking the question. You find out you did a tender, you name, and this is not to question the company, but a company called Diamond something, never heard them involved in anything as it pertains to this type of technology being provided, and they are charging 6,000 more than a qualified company who provided us with the body cameras previously. And nobody is saying anything. This is $18 million extra that could be provided to change all the uniforms, improve the police marine branch. We're able to provide more tasers, pepper spray, technology, training, equipment for the police service. $18 million, and nobody's asking why.
Wow. 2,000, 6,000 more. Wow. Yeah, because I just thought it was high because anybody, the average citizen could go to Amazon, you could go online, 4K cameras I'm talking about. Maybe about 100 and something US, 200 and something US dollars. It nowhere close to that 8,000, and like you said, nobody's asking the question, and everybody going on about it as business as usual. I have no idea why they're paying that kind of money. But let me ask you something in connection with the body cameras. We had two incidents recently that I could call off the top of my head. One with these gel guns, where the police pull up on some people and shots were fired. Somebody got hit in a house. We had the shooting with the lady in the Beatum. As a former commissioner, do you agree with the current state of emergency has been called? Do you think it is having a positive effect? I mean, I don't think so because people still, murders, everything's still going on. But how would you have handled this from a policing operation standpoint if you were the commissioner of police and they declared a state of emergency? And is a curfew necessary?
Yeah, sure. And just 1 minute, just before to clarify what you just said. They are body cameras and they are body cameras. So I know what they will try to throw in now because you have body cameras now available that if a police officer draws his firearm, immediately the body camera triggers on. So they are very expensive body cameras because sometimes the police officer in an immediate firefight, he's not going to have time to worry about that. Okay. That's why we said turn it on as soon as you're on patrol. So you could draw your weapon as soon as the weapon is drawn. Immediately the body camera triggers on because it's connected to your holster. Right. So so we have to admit that they're more sophisticated body cameras. But then to prove that our concerns are not valid, tell us the specs of these body cameras at the value of 8,000, and then we could go on Amazon to realize, hey, this is not making sense. Right. Because I could assure you that they're not saying that. Well, so if the country is so concerned, $18 million more. When it is you could have acquired the same body cameras from the previous companies, and we were getting it good enough that they were on patrols for several hours, they return it, we are turning it on, and we were verifying whether you used it or not. So what it is that you have, is it that these new body cameras have hot and cold water, cable TV in it, that could be so expensive for $8,000 more? Show us it so that we could verify. If we could go on Amazon or whatever, we will see that it is justified and taxpayers getting their money. As it pertains to the gel blaster and so forth, again, minimum use of force policy. We put a standard operational procedure to ensure that police officers will have tasers and pepper spray to ensure minimum use of force. So if someone has something as a cutlass, a piece of wood, the police officer cannot use the excuse of saying, I had no other choice but to use my firearm. That is why I provided the body cameras, the tasers, the pepper spray to ensure minimum use of force to prevent these things. All of those items would have been provided with a belt that we were getting to make sure that the officer has everything strapped onto him. That ensured that the minimum use of force policy could be adhered to. They have stopped giving the issue of the body cameras, the tasers, and the pepper spray. So which means if somebody shouted at a police officer running with a piece of wood, the officer will now return to his firearm and then said, I feared for my life. Going into the state of emergency situation, I said from day one, I do not believe a state of emergency should be used as a crime fighting tool. It should be used as a situation that can affect national security. So again, in 2011, when I was security advisor, I told Kamala Prasad-Bissessar, it is inappropriate. 9 murders in 5 days. It does not justify having a state of emergency. I think we paid the price politically and financially by the then Commissioner of Police foolishly arresting persons without due process, without just cause. And my concern is the same things could happen again. Hundreds have been arrested already. And now we have put a get out of jail free card by stating that that persons cannot sue the state if held for an indefinite period during the SOE, unless you go right to the president. This is going to be challenged in court. I know it is going to happen, and we are going to go through the same thing. My take on it is that all of the things being done now in the SOE could have been done without the state of emergency. I did it as Commissioner of Police. What you do is you escalate the national alert state from green to amber to red to black based on the threat, and that you intensify the operations, you intensify all the different patrols, you bring in more police officers, you take officers off the admin buildings and put them onto the street. You get more high visibility, more presence, a faster deterrent. All of the things being done now could be done without the SOE. The only difference with the SOE is that it allows the soldiers to hold persons, which I think is a dangerous situation if they are not trained and being properly precepted, because they should be accompanying the police officers to support them, not to be involved in the arresting. And two, it allows the police now to be able to break into homes without a warrant and hold persons indefinitely. That I see as an excuse because we don't have enough intelligence to hold the persons. So we are now trying to circumvent a situation by holding persons because we don't have enough evidence. What is required is intelligence-driven policing, preventative policing. Doing the things that the Prime Minister spoke about when he voiced his concern that it takes too long for a response to a distress call. Because yet again, when we revamped the E999 system, we formed the Rapid Response Unit, the Emergency Response Patrol, the Operational Command Center, the Commissioner's Command Center, the National Operations Center, live cameras on the dashboards of all the police vehicles. All of this led to a less than 5-minute response to every distress call. That is what made people feel safe. They knew that if you call 999, you wouldn't be put on hold for 45 minutes. And now we have gone back to the old 1970s where you're making the report to the police station and seeing if a police vehicle is available to respond. That is old-time policing. Police stations are not the response mechanism to a distress call. It is, you'll see it, highway patrol, emergency response patrol, rapid response unit, where we had GPS tracking on each one of these 100 vehicles spread across the country. We monitor the area of responsibility at the operational command center, where we were also monitoring the 1,600,000 cameras around the country. And we can look at the vehicle in closest proximity to the distress call. What are they? Bam, a less than 5-minute response. You jump over the wall in a home invasion. By the time you jump back out, we can take you. That put an end to kidnapping. That put an end to extortion. It made people feel safe. You're on Arapita Avenue, people started complaining that they were seeing too many blue lights on a Friday night. It was getting them too sober. That is what is required. The high visibility, the heavy deterrent, the making sure you have that presence. And by doing that, that is what show the value of the state of emergency. Arresting persons, granted, the one thing that we have seen a value of is that there's been a slight reduction in murders. But do people actually feel safer? The answer is no. And the reduction of the fear of crime is as important as crime reduction itself.
And you mentioned something that the Prime Minister said there when he said response time, and he made a couple statements in recent times. He said the police were hiding in police stations, which the police responded to saying, "But what are you talking about?" I remember that morning, police officers messaged me and they said, "Listen, this is a tint issue. We have been complaining about the tint. We've been trying to get this thing solved and it's reaching nowhere. Nobody's doing anything about it." Because in the night, obviously, I mean, in anybody's home, you take off your lights inside so you could see proper outside so that nobody from outside could see inside, right? That's how it works. But he made that statement. I don't know if he was misinformed, misled by whomever was giving him the information, but he came and he said it and he made it a public statement. The other thing he said is that he was disappointed in the TTPS's approach to policing. Earlier this week, I took him up on that quite harshly, and I said, well, that is an indictment on himself, because he is the one, as I recall, went to President's house, Meritless make a U-turn, Bliss Prasad make a U-turn and went back out, and then boop, we end up with Erla here with Christopher. And if you're going to talk about the TTPS's approach to policing, it starts with the head. So that's an indictment on him. Now, attaining a lot of things here, because I know you're going to, and you could go ahead and rumble after. Which brings me to the other point now. The process to select a commissioner of police, I understand that has changed. So I don't know if you want to elaborate on that change, as well as the other issues that I just mentioned with the comments made by the Prime Minister.
Yeah, sure. So the Prime Minister's comment, again, it's all based on words. He said that they are scared. Had he stated that they were very concerned, there would be no, I don't think there would be that big focus on the words. Scared, very concerned, tomato to me. The point is, there is a situation. I recall in 1990, the day after the attempted coup, I was tasked to be able to go to all the police stations to verify if everything was okay. Almost every police station was abandoned. The doors were wide open. So I was going to this station, James Station, that station, all over, and they were wide open. The police officers left. At that time, in 1990, police officers were not trained in dealing with counter-revolutionary warfare. They were trained just for law enforcement. So when it hit the fan, men say, look, you see that? I'm gone. And the stations were wide open. Thankfully, there were hundreds of police officers came to camp out there and said they were willing to work with us. But the stations themselves, nothing. And it showed the importance for us having to train our police officers in counter-revolutionary warfare and being able to prepare for that type of eventuality.
Right.
Thankfully, it showed that we did, because in 2020, 150 men were trying to come down into Port of Spain to destroy the city when there were 30 simultaneous roadblocks all over the country, burning tires and so forth. The defense force stayed in camp, so it shifted the other way now. The defense force said they were on standby. What on standby? 150 men trying to destroy Port of Spain. The police were well trained. They were able to handle the situation, divert the individuals, and Port of Spain was saved. The police officers were never thanked for that. It showed that they have the capability to do it. What has happened now is that by stations being closed and lights being off, that never happened before. So we should focus on what is causing the doors to be closed now. What is causing them to have to turn off the lights? If they speak about needing to tint a building, to tint a building is a couple $1,000s. When it is that Nicole Griffith put the eye support or service, these are the things that were being provided by the business sector to give to the police stations, where it is that they said they didn't have a printer, they didn't have ink, they didn't have machinery, they didn't, the air conditioner wasn't working, the tire for the vehicle wasn't working. The business sector was providing this for the police service to provide them. When all the bacchanal and the lies took place, all of the people who knew what value they got and benefited from it, they all stayed silent. So now that ISOS has moved away, the business sector is unable to provide a proper check and balance to provide the things needed for the police service. So you're telling me a simple thing as a tint that the business sector could have done through ISOS. Because of that, you're locking your doors and giving citizens the impression, well, the police shut down for the night. And there's a reason why they're doing this, because of drive-by shootings. There's no longer a situation at the police service. The station is a fortress. People are being killed in front of the police station. A man, his head was blown off at Residence nightclub, 50 meters from the commissioner's office. People are being, so this thing about, so that's why when people talk their foolishness, let's set up a police post. A police post or a police station is not an avenue to reduce crime. People are being killed next to the station. What is required is the response. So the focus should be on what is causing the problem, that the police officers are now so concerned that they are, because of the brazen criminals. That is, and what we're seeing is that the very senior police officers, even during the SOE, not one of them have put on tactical gear to be on the ground with their troops. They continue to be in Gabardine, continue to hold their cane, stay upstairs in the admin building. What we need is leadership by example. They get on the ground. It allows the police officers to feel confident, to feel sure that my leader is there. He's willing to take the first bullet. And that is leadership by example. If that is not there, the junior officers on the ground say, you upstairs and you have your security and your armored vehicle protecting you. Nobody is protecting me. So that is the problem. It is not that the police officers are scared. It's that there's a lack of leadership, lack of direction, lack of providing the resources for the police is also important. Every officer should have an issued bulletproof vest that is not expired. These are the things that are required. That is provided all by the leaders of the police service who are not providing it. So the focus should be not on whether they are scared or concerned, but on making sure the police officers are ready to take the war to the criminals, and they are not willing to do it anymore because of lack of proper leadership. Right. As it pertains to your question to the selection process for the police commissioner, there is a major need for concern, and nobody is looking at that. What happened pre-2018 is that the persons to be selected as commissioner of police would have been assessed through qualified international experts. Previously, it was Penn State, and that's how Dwayne Gibbs was selected, and he beat Stephen Williams by a mile. Stephen Williams was never in his standard. That is how and then KPMG hired British experts who have selected commissioners, 20-odd commissioners around the world. When I did my first assessment in 2018, I got 82%. Ulla Christopher got 52%. She didn't come in the top 20 in all the assessments, from mock media conference, mock interviews, operational report, the character of the person, the assessments, the exams. She didn't come in the top 20. International experts were able to do that. We have no civilian or person in this country who is qualified to be able to handpick a commissioner of police. What they did, they changed it from the international company being selected to ask the Police Service Commission to be the assessors. So you had Judith Jones, who's a judge. What you know about commissioning, about policing? You don't, you're a judge. You have Maxine King and Maxine Atong, speaking consultants and financial accountants and all of that. You are selecting a commissioner of police. You're not trained, you're not qualified, you're not experienced. You don't have anything to be able to know. How do you pick up the framework to assess somebody to be a commissioner of police? So somebody who didn't come in the top 20 by experts, bam, she now comes first. It is because of the change of the process. So we have civilians in the Police Service Commission. Now, granted, they may be good enough to assess the person after they have been selected as a commissioner, because you have a template. How have you submitted your finances? How have you done accounts? What is the crime rate reduction? What is the public trust and confidence of you? What is the public trust and confidence of the police service? So the Police Service Commission can assess the commissioner, but they are not qualified to select a commissioner. And that is the problem. So Judith Jones and those other jokers who were in the previous Police Service Commission imposed Ulla Christopher on us. We shouldn't be blaming Ulla. That is the problem. So for us to make sure we have a proper police commissioner down the road, we need to get back to the process, because let me tell you, when that last process was done, even when I was selected the second time and I got 94% and Ulla got 74%, she moved from 52 to 74% because Bliss Prasad and company, and she placed third. Ulla Christopher placed third. That is, Mr. Norton came second with 77%. But then when Judith Jones and these other jokers came up now, they put her first. Because the process now is that 50% is mock media conference, interview, role fit, and all of that. And then 50% is interview. So that 50%, you can just get two people who I like Ulla. I think it's time for a woman, and give her 49 out of 50%. And people who got 48 out of 50 in the others, you could give them 10%. And that is how Ulla was selected. It's subjective. It can be based on person being politically aligned. It could be based on somebody's friend. It could be based on I don't like that person. It must not involve locals with no qualifications selecting the commissioner. We must go back to the Penn State when Dwayne Gibbs was selected, or through KPMG when they selected the UK expert. Taking out the locals will ensure that we get the best person for commissioner.
You know, I've heard Ulla here with Christopher speak. I can't believe she passed the interview part. I just said she's not the best speaker.
Stefan, but that is the point. It is subjective now. So the same KPMG experts who selected her, when you look at, I think she got out of 15, she got 6 out of 15. She got the lowest for the interview, the lowest. And then the next set now, under the Police Service Commission, they gave her the highest because it is subjective. So instead of the experts selecting, you have these locals, Maxine King and Maxine Atong and Judith Jones. I challenge them. Show us the points that you all did to select Ulla Christopher, who can come in the top 20 by qualified international experts. And now you bring her first, and everyone stayed silent. Yeah. And this was the opposition can't ramage because they endorsed Ulla Christopher. Julian John said Ulla Christopher is the greatest thing since sliced bread. The opposition can't wash their hands and play Pontius Pilate and that. This was unanimous. This was the same opposition that abstained when Gary Griffith was selected to be commissioner. And the country must never forget that also. this was the same opposition when they were in government, removed Dwayne Gibbs and brought in Stephen Williams. So you know the standard of the opposition. We don't want Dwayne Gibbs, we want Stephen Williams. We don't want Gary Griffith, we want Erla Christopher. That is what you will get if there's a UNC government, just by the way, without any alliance there. But the point is, we cannot have locals being involved in the process, because 50% is the interview. And the person could stutter and make a mess of it, and they will give them 49 out of 50, and you cannot question it. Put back the international experts to take away the political affiliation, the bias, the discrimination, and then you will get the best person to be selected as Commissioner of Police.
And just finally, I have about two or 3 minutes here. Yesterday I spoke about Fitzgerald Hines in a radio interview, and he spoke about having 2 Coast Guard vessels, but he also spoke about the OPVs being sold and sent to Brazil, and that the previous administration got money, and he made a statement on radio saying, we don't know what they did with the money. But I know, as I recall, and I said, you all bought a fleet of damning vessels. Am I right or am I wrong, or am I going insane?
You're correct, but again, it's how people do their lie. When I was National Security Advisor and we removed the Special Anti-Crime Unit, there were 150 men in their 60s, a set of retirees who were getting 150,000 TT a month. I packaged all the money and I realized this was $20 million. I then went to the Prime Minister and said, look, we have 20,000 law enforcement officials, police, army, customs, coast guard, prisons, fire. If we can give each of them $1,000 a month, and that will equate to what 150 Englishmen were getting from SOT. That is how every single person, so everyone who is in the law enforcement agency now, in the protective services, that $1,000 you're getting is because the National Security Advisor did the draft to show the Prime Minister, give 20,000 of them $1,000 a month, it equates to what 150 Englishmen were getting from SOT. That is the same thing I did when I became Minister of National Security. The OPVs, the cost was $2.4 billion. $2.4 billion. I asked the country, type BAE/corruption. You will see 17 countries suing BAE for paying kickbacks to government officials, inclusive of the British government. Then I got as a security advisor, I got an offer from Israel, Korea, and Colombia, provided us with the same model and type OPV as what BAE was given, but for over 800 million TT less. 800 million TT less. I then went and got with Damen, we were able to get the same type, the vessels to do the same thing that the OPVs would have been doing, having the same money that we got back, because we got back all the money because BAE were not able to adhere to their obligation. So we got everything back. And then instead of the 2.4 billion, I told the Prime Minister, give us 1.2 out of that 2.4, where we will get 12 Damen vessels, 6 would have been interceptors, then 2 would have, it's interceptors and supply vessels and all of that, to do the same thing that the OPVs would have done, but for much less cost in maintenance and manpower strength and so forth. So the nonsense when they speak, they do not look and analyze. So the Damen vessels, they would have done the same thing for $1,200 million less.
Wow. All right, just before you go, you're the political leader of a political party that is, contesting all 41 constituencies last time I heard. I already see that you all are screening and you're selecting candidates. On that note, as you're going deeper into 2025, I know that the NTA is going to be talking a little more about outside of crime. There are many other issues like healthcare, works and infrastructure, sports, culture, tourism. So I'm sure that we're going to hear more from you and some of your candidates on those issues. But as somebody who is leading a political party, what's your thoughts on the new administration in America?
Well, what is interesting is people are trying to jump on bandwagons here, the bandwagon situation. Hearing a political leader try to mimic Donald Trump and trying to speak like him and speak about stand your ground. That's nonsense. You cannot put stand your ground. There must be some degree of understanding that you have to use minimum force even in your own home. So right. Think that somebody jumps over a wall, it gives me the right to riddle the person. Then speaking about, I will give every police officer a firearm. It's 5% of the police officers are very well corrupt. So by giving offers for things that we give everybody a firearm, and then stating that we abhor all of the different things done by a previous administration, I agree that we do not agree with some of the policies done by our previous administration, but there's something called diplomacy. Because in 4 years' time, that same administration will now come back as the US government. And how can you face them by stating the nastiest things about them?
Okay.
It is basic diplomacy and protocol that you do not go. And what you can state is the policies done by the previous administration we do not agree with. And I agree with that. That is something totally different than by stating I'm trying to demonize and sort of you all mutilated children and you did that. But they might very well be in government in 2028 and then you are prime minister now in 2025. How are you going to face, and it will be the same Kamala Harris? It shows lack of diplomacy, lack of professionalism, lack of understanding public relations. That is my point. People try to, the Trump, I mean, many persons have seen my style. My style has been a no-nonsense approach. I was the first person that dealt with the immigration problem in Trinidad and Tobago. We have 120,000 persons. When I was minister, I clashed with CARICOM. But they're coming into the country, and it's not just Venezuela with 40,000. It's 40,000 from CARICOM, and then you have 40,000 plus from the Middle East and other places. They come here, and they do not want to go back. I put a 3-month moratorium. The UNC administration did not continue with it after I left. That would have ensured that the majority of them would have been regularized. They would have been paying taxes. It would have reduced human trafficking. It would have reduced child prostitution. It would have ensured persons would not be working in atrocious conditions. It would have injected 2 billion TT into the economy. Those are the things that you do. You think out of the box. You don't just jump up as a political leader and we put in trainees, and she has to stop with the pause as if she's a school teacher. Trainees first. No, that is not how we do it. And everybody must go home and we will kick them out. That is not how you deal with a situation like that. Because there are many persons here who are illegal immigrants who are doing good work, but they are not regularized. They're afraid that they will be thrown out. We have to give them the 3-month moratorium, give them the opportunity to be regularized. And that is the problem you're getting in Florida. You want to get rid of all the illegal immigrants, but there are many persons who have jobs that the US citizens do not want to do. So you have to be very careful how you balance it. Same thing with firearms. I was the first person that made it accessible for a law-abiding citizen to get a firearm. Never happened before. I was able to issue 6,000 in 3 years. There are another 30,000 waiting. But you can't come as a prime minister in waiting and say, I want to give everybody a gun. That we have to be very careful. We can't trump our way into getting into the government in Trinidad and Tobago. We need to be analytical. We need to be patient, and we need to do things in a way understanding that if you go overboard, it will have a rippling effect to affect the country.
Okay. Well, nice chatting with you today. Best of luck to Manchester United later. And
Europa football is what it's all about now, not Champions League. Champions is...
Hey, have a good one. Enjoy the day. And we look forward to hearing things from the NTA one.
Take care.
All right.